Hello and welcome to Pickleball Therapy, the podcast dedicated to your pickleball improvement. My name is Tony Roig. I am your host this and every week on this podcast. As I mentioned, this podcast is dedicated to your pickleball improvement. This week, I am happy to have as my guest, my partner and friend, CJ Johnson, who's in town doing some We Are Pickleball camps that we're working on together here in Tampa. So we're a little bit tired, but it's been really good camps. It's very invigorating to see players who are intent on improvement continue on their path and to be able to be a part of that with them. This week, we're going to talk about some things that we've discovered during a survey that we did at We Are Pickleball. I think you might find it interesting in terms of the things that pickleball players believe about the game, some of which we agree with and some of which maybe we want to talk about some more and maybe explore a little bit. And then during the riff, I am going to turn the mic over to CJ and let CJ let you know a little bit more about CJ and her journey as a person on this planet, and whatever it is she wants to talk about, it's going to be her riff. Stay tuned for the podcast. If you want to have the most fun you've ever had on the pickleball court while at the same time learning the skills and strategies that you need to play your best pickleball, check out our We Are Pickleball camps. You can find out more at wearepickleball.com/camps. I'll link to it below in the show notes. When you're ready to treat yourself to the best and most immersive pickleball camp available anywhere, join us at a We Are Pickleball camp. You'll find our 2022 schedule in the link below. This much fun should be illegal. All right, I'm happy to have CJ Johnson, who you may know from Better Pickleball and is my partner in We Are Pickleball, here with me. We're not even going to pretend like we don't know each other, like she's a guest on my podcast, like make a big deal out of it. So CJ, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, Tony, it's great to be on the podcast, but it's better to be here in Tampa.
That's right. She got out of the snow in Lake Tahoe area where she's from, where she lives. Her husband is coming out tomorrow, so we're gonna give him a little escape from the snow as well. So that should be fun. And we have our camps this weekend and next week, so we are looking forward to it. And it's been a lot of fun giving the camps, right, CJ? A lot of fun.
It has. It's so much fun working with players who want to improve, who are taking their game not necessarily seriously. It's not like, my goodness, I'm going to go play a tournament or things like that, but people who are thirsty for knowledge. Yeah,
and just curiosity, right? Just keep learning and growing. We love the sport and just keep on growing. And CJ and I really enjoy sharing our knowledge, what we've learned through study, playing, working, thinking about it, all those things. So we really like it. So, and CJ and I are partners in We Are Pickleball, which you may know, and we're super happy to do that as well as another way to bring hopefully helpful information to pickleball players. And so CJ put together a survey, just kind of, hey, what's going on out there? What are people thinking about? And so CJ, what was the number one thing that we learned from our survey that pickleball players are looking for or think they need in order to continue improving as pickleball players?
The biggest thing, without a shadow of a doubt, was consistency. Players, when they're looking at their own improvement, it was, I need to find a way to be more consistent on the pickleball courts.
Yeah, and obviously that's great. I mean, I think that's awesome, right? You would agree? I
would agree.
Yeah, I think the idea that I need to be more consistent is something that makes sense, right? I mean, that's a good aim, I think, if you want to improve as a pickleball player. Consistency is the key. And you remember when we had Kyle Yates was on the summit with us a few months back, last year, middle of the year when we had the summit, or earlier in the year. You remember what Kyle said, right, about consistency, right?
So Kyle, truly one of the best players in the world, definitely a transitional player between some, I guess you could say, old style pickleball versus some of the more modern style that we're seeing, with the game being sped up just a little bit and some different elements coming into the game. But one of the things that Kyle said, when you asked him, you said, so if you're going to share one thing, what would it be? And he talked about consistency and basically don't be fancy when basic will do.
Right. Keep it simple. Kyle said, listen, not everybody plays like Ben Johns or Simone Jardine, right? I mean, and you don't need to be a really good, competent, quality player. Just keep it simple. Keep the errors down, and consistency is really key for that. And I think, CJ, if we were thinking about a couple of tips for consistency, one that I would share, and I'll give you a chance to think about yours because we didn't really rehearse this thing. We're just going live. So one of the things that I would suggest for a player to improve their consistency is to reduce the amount of their stroke. Meaning, like, how much are you swinging to hit the ball? A lot of the errors that we make as pickleball players are based on excessive swing. So more swing, a lot of times equals more errors. What do you think, CJ? What tip do you think you would share with players about that?
Okay.
Consistency.
Yeah, you stole my thunder because we just shot a video about this. My first day here, we just shot a video that's going to appear on the Better Pickleball channel about reducing the size of your stroke to get more consistent. To me, this is pickleball is my third sport. I've been an athlete my entire life, a professional athlete, and it's practice. It's if you want to be more consistent, you have to put in the reps. You have to put in the time, and you can do that in a variety of different ways. I think people, when they think of practice, they think it's painful. Right. It requires long hours. It doesn't, but you have to put in the reps. Otherwise, how can you go out and play in a game and expect to perform when you haven't spent any time getting your body's an instrument, getting your body to work?
Right. And I think the mistake that players make is they think that playing equal practice. That is not true, folks. If you think that getting out on the pickleball court and playing an extra hour, or, I played 3 times this week and I'm going to improve my mechanical part of my game, which is what you need for consistency, that is a mistake. That is a myth. If you're going to practice, you need to practice, not play. CJ, let's talk about the second item that we found in the survey. What was that?
It was exactly what you said. People said in order to improve, they needed to play more.
I wish I had known that before, because I would have. That's a great segue, right? But hey, it worked out. So, okay. So number 2 was people were saying, okay, I'm going to get better by playing. Folks, listen. If you're listening to this podcast, that generally means to us that we understand that you're serious about the game and serious about improving. Playing more will not improve your game. Stop the presses. Forget about it. It will not improve your game. CJ, I know you just mentioned about your background. I know that you were a very successful high level. You were a good golfer, right? You were maybe not.
Yes.
Maybe you didn't reach Annika Sorenstrom levels of the golf, but you were a very, very good golfer. Talk to us a little bit about, like, when you were working on your golf game. Were you just like, okay, let's play 18 holes, like, I don't know, 8 times a week or something like that? Or what did you do to improve as a golfer?
Well, just to let you know, I can beat Annika on the pickleball courts.
That's true.
She lives in where I'm from, and she does play, and she's a pickleball player.
Awesome.
Yeah, not on the golf course. Not on the golf course. But so when I was working as a golf professional, I probably spent 70 to 80% of my time, depending upon where I was at in a tournament cycle and what was happening in my game. But I probably spent 70 to 80% of my time on the practice range. And not just the practice range, on the putting green. So I was working on my swing. I was working on my putting stroke. I was working on chipping, pitching, short game shots. So probably 70 to 80% of my time was spent there. And I mentioned this during the camp. I said my pickleball stroke is not as consistent as my golf stroke, because I have hit, I don't know, 1 million balls. I mean, a million golf balls. 1 million golf balls. 1 million golf balls. And I haven't hit that many pickleballs because it's just a matter of time. I've been a golf pro since 1989. Right. So it's just a matter of time. You do the math. I've been playing pickleball since 2016. So I'm definitely much more consistent at golf, even if I've stepped away from it for a long period of time. Right. But the fact remains, if I wanted to go back and play golf at a high level again, I'm not going to go play. I mean, yes, I'll play some, but if I'm going to go back and play at a high level, I'm going back to practice. Right.
And if you want to have consistency, definitely practice. So one of the things that happened during our camp today, one of the campers asked the question, and the question was, how much time should I spend drilling versus playing? Now, there's not an absolute number, right? So CJ just said 70-80%. That's one number. What the response that we gave was basically, if you were, say you needed to work on a mechanical part of your game, which consistency is mechanical, folks. So if you needed to work on your consistency, say a mechanical part of your game, suggested 90% drilling. So if you have 8 hours in the week, spend 7 of them working on the shot and 1 hour playing. If you want to improve, right? So now if you're working on, say, like something that requires court time, like recognizing the movement on the court and recognizing what's going on the court, then maybe you need more time on the court. But even then, you need to be focused on what you're doing and not just quote unquote playing the game. So that's definitely helpful. CJ, what was number 3 on the survey? What do we got?
Oh, so number 3 was I can't practice because no one will practice with me.
No one will practice with me. That is, listen, and there's no judgment here, folks. Yes, that happens. That happens, and it can be a thing. CJ, I'm going to give one suggestion, and then I'm going to turn it over to you. But one suggestion that we talk about is just like if all you can get is 10 minutes before you start playing, take the 10 minutes. In other words, if you get to the courts a little bit early, if you get early, there's not enough players sometimes, or there's an odd number, whatever. Go up to someone you know and say, hey, would you dinkle me for 2 minutes? Now, 2 minutes is a fib. It's one of those white lies because you're saying 2 minutes. You really expect it to be 3, 4, 5, 6. It might be 10 minutes, right? But just say, hey, do you mind hitting me just a couple minutes? I've just been working on this one shot. 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, yeah, that's great. Let's do it. Now, here's what's interesting, right? What's interesting is when you ask that person to hit a few times with you, what can happen then, CJ?
They're going to come back and they're going to ask you to hit with them because they're working on a shot.
Right. And then what you do is you end up finding potentially a drilling partner.
Right.
And you just kind of walk into it. Now, if you walk up to somebody and just say, I would, hey, meet me next Saturday. I want to drill for 3.5 hours and whatever. Not interested, right? Or maybe not interested. But if you say to them, let's do this for a couple minutes. And then maybe next time they say, hey, meet me 15 minutes early, right? Right? Exactly. So, CJ, any other thoughts on no one will drill me? I mean, there's a couple other options I think that players have, right? If no one is available to drill with them.
Themselves. I mean, that's kind of one of the biggest ones, especially coming from a sport that was solo. Coming from golf, I'm also, I teach skiing. Right. Coming from skiing, those are sports that you can practice by yourself. So my mentality when I really started playing pickleball is how can I drill alone? Now, certainly one of those is a ball machine. I mean, I have a ball machine. I know you have a ball machine as well, but you don't have to have a ball machine. There's some specific reasons we do. Where I have a lot of fun. So when Tony came to Tahoe back in September, I wanted to make some changes in my game. And I asked Tony to help me to make some changes. Mm-hmm. So we started working on it. He gave me some things to do. And I went to the wall. That's where I spent my time. So I would go over, and now it's like October and November, and we kind of had a very nice fall in Tahoe, and being at the wall there is pretty warm, and I'd turn on the music, and I'd just hit for the wall, and being that I'm an athlete and I like to practice, I'd kind of lose myself in the practice, and I just would have a blast. Now, obviously, we got snow, and things changed, I told Tony I have carpet in the house, but I have an entryway that has tile in the entryway, and I got a foam ball. One of the foam balls, Gamma and Babolat both make a foam ball. I got a foam ball, and I can hit. I have enough space to be able to hit a short shot against the door. Right. And so I told Tony, before I came here, hey, I've been hitting balls against the wall. So truly the first time that I've played since November, and we're recording this in January, the first time I've played since November was today. I mean, we went out on the court and we played today, but I have been hitting balls and practicing. So you can do these things by yourself, even if it's a bag of balls to the court. Yeah. Take a bag of balls to the court.
Listen, if you have a flat surface near you and some balls, and you don't need 100 of them, 10, 12 balls, 15, 20, whatever. You have a space. We were talking about it earlier with our campers today. You can take the balls and you can hit them into the grass. You can put targets like trash cans. You can do all sorts of ways to practice. One other way you can practice is what we call ghost drilling or mirror drilling, where you're basically simply making the motion of the paddle with nothing in front of you, just your visualization of the situation. So you imagine the ball going to your right, say on a dink, you laterally move to the right, you do a nice, from your ready position, you squat down, you put the paddle out in front of you, you complete the dink, back to ready position, shuffle back to the middle. You'll be amazed at how much benefit that has. So those are 3 things that we found from our survey that were not necessarily eye-opening, but what was interesting was to see what players are thinking about the game and what maybe are things that they need to work on and things that are holding them back. So we wanted to share those with you and give you some tips on those. In the riff, I am turning the microphone over to CJ. I'm leaving the room. CJ is going to talk to you about whatever she wants to, about pickleball, life, her journey, anything she wants to talk about. So if you want to get to know CJ Johnson from Better Pickleball and WeArePickleball a little bit more, stay tuned for the riff. As a pickleball player, you are no doubt working on your game. But are you also working on your vision? Doesn't it make sense that better vision will lead to better pickleball? Not to mention better night driving. CJ and I rely on the experts at Visual Edge to help us track those balls so we don't ever miss a shot. If you're ready to take your vision and perhaps your game to the next level, join us inside Visual Edge. I'll link to it below. We'll see you inside.
Hey everybody, this is CJ Johnson, and Tony really did turn this off and leave the room and say, here you go. So I've been an athlete my whole life, and I was talking about being a golf professional as well as a ski professional. And now that I've come to pickleball and transitioned to pickleball, I've had some challenges, like everyone. When we start a sport and we're a little bit older, I found pickleball when I was, probably about 50. I'm 58 now, so I found pickleball when I was about 52. And when we start a sport and we're a little bit older, it can be challenging on the body, certainly on the body, even though I'm pretty fit and I'm in pretty good shape. I got my first case of golfer's elbow from playing pickleball. And I'm like many of you, I found the game, fell in love with it, played 8 days a week, 10 hours a time, not quite that much, but several hours at a time, and got my first overuse injury from playing pickleball. So, but even without, let's take the body aside, I mean, the challenges of being an older athlete, I think mentally, the challenges of learning a sport at an older age, really at any age, when you're not a kid. When you're a kid, I came to skiing, I came to golf, I learned those. I had my first set of golf clubs at 5. I cannot remember my first time that I was on skis. I was a year and a half when I was on skis. So I learned those pretty instinctively. I think we do that as we're kids. And then as we become teenagers, if you were an athlete as a teenager, you begin to refine those skills. When we learn sports as an adult, we learn very differently, because as adults, we learn differently than we do when we're kids. And so one of the things that has plagued me, not just in pickleball, but it had plagued me some in golf as well, is a mental attitude, and making sure that mentally I'm in the right place to perform my best. And so again, it doesn't matter if you're on a golf course, a pickleball court, a mountain, whatever is going on in your head is going to come out in your performance, in your body. I have a saying that I use a lot, and it's, if I talked to you the way you talk to yourself, would we still be friends? I am a big proponent of positive self-talk. And I know that to some of you, that's going to kind of sound kind of mamby-pamby, or it really isn't. It is all about you perform how you think. And there's one thing that you have control over. It is how you think. And I found myself, so again, coming to this sport a little later in life, and of course, having a sports background, having an athletic background, there have been times in my pickleball journey where, in my estimation, I didn't pick something up fast enough. I didn't develop a new skill proficiently enough. I wasn't as consistent as I thought I should be based on the amount of time that I put in. It's kind of a whole host of things. And some of those negative thoughts, well, you should be doing this better, or you should be doing this differently, or you should be doing this. Some of those shoulds really started to impact my self-confidence on the pickleball court. And actually, it kind of flowed, that negative thought process flowed back into the golf arena as well as into the skiing arena. And I was starting to think some negative thoughts when I was doing those other sports as well. And I had to stop and just remember that I need to be my best friend. What I've learned on this journey, especially the mental aspect of sport, is we're going to have negative thoughts. There's no way I can shut off all these negative thoughts. It's just never going to happen. We're human beings. At least I am. I can't shut off all these negative thoughts, but what can I do? What's the solution when I do have a negative thought? So when I'm out on the pickleball court and I'm getting these messages that in my brain are that I'm not good enough, I don't belong here, I shouldn't be here, what are some of the things that I can do to turn that off? And the tool that I use the most is I like to, you've heard Tony talk about self 1 and self 2. Self 1 is the part of your brain that tells you, and this goes back to Tim Galloway and the Inner Game of Tennis, which was one of the very first mental books that I read, because there wasn't anything. He hadn't yet written the Inner Game of Golf. I read that when he did that one as well. But so you have self 1 and you have self 2. So self 1 is the part of you that tells self 2, the part of you that knows how to do it. So self 2 is the automatic part, and self 1 is the part that tells you how to do it. I know as an athlete, I am never going to perform proficiently if my self 1 is telling my self 2 how to perform. It's never going to happen. It's never worked in any sport that I have ever played. Why would it work in pickleball? Yet, so many times, again, I should be older. I'm getting all these negative messages. So one of the things that I do, like I said, to kind of quiet that inner voice is when I hear it, I smile and I say, thank you very much for participating. I kind of say this mentally. I don't say this out loud. Thank you very much for participating. But I enjoy this game and I'm progressing at the pace that I'm capable of progressing at today. Tomorrow may be different, but I'm progressing at the pace that I'm capable of progressing at today. And frankly, some days I'm going to go out on the pickleball courts and I'm going to play well. And some days I'm going to go out on the pickleball courts and I'm not going to play so well. I have to be accepting of who I am as a human being. And if I can't be my own friend on and off the pickleball courts, my own cheerleader, who's going to be the cheerleader for me? So I hope you can take this and begin to learn to be your own cheerleader. And let me tell you this, you may not have the solution just yet, but what you need to do is just look for the times when you hear that negative voice, recognize it. Recognize the negative voice and just say, okay, I hear you, and do your best to push it off to the side and just allow yourself the freedom of being at where you are at today and enjoy where you are at today. Because you know what? Chances are tomorrow it's going to be different. I want to thank Tony for having me on the podcast, and that's my riff for you. hopefully we'll see you one day at one of our We Are Pickleball camps where we talk about this sort of stuff, and we'll share some more war stories about how to get past the mental part of the game, because it's such an important part for players.
Thank you, CJ, for sharing your story with us and talking about the mental part of the game. It's such an important part of the game that's often overlooked. If you want to improve, make sure you're spending some time on the mental part of the game. Hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. If you enjoyed it, please give it a rating on whatever platform you listen to it. And if you enjoyed it, remember to share with your friends. If you liked it, they probably will too. Hope you have a great week next week. See you at the next podcast, and be well out there.